If you're thinking of a trip to Europe with your family, we are sharing all the details about why Air France is an incredible airline for families, especially when booking with points. And I'm also going to share my very first business class flight experience, which was also on Air France. So tune in. Hi, I'm Rhea.
And I'm Dwayne.
And we are your hosts of the Travel Party of Five podcast, where we share how we travel as a family of five around the world.
We will also share how we use points and miles to travel as affordably as possible and sometimes even completely free.
So if you're wanting to travel more with your family, but you're not sure how, we'd love for you to listen in.
So welcome to our podcast where we hope you learn a thing or two to get you closer to your next trip.
Hello and welcome back to... We're going to redo that. We're going to redo it. Hi, friends. Hello and welcome back to...
Travel Party of Five.
Thank you for joining us today. Okay, so today's episode has kind of two parts, and I realized that I did you all a disservice because when we did our Paris episode, I did say that I was going to talk about my business class flight that I flew back from Paris to Phoenix, and I never did that. So I'm gonna share that experience because it was pretty fun, and I think also business class, at least when I see people flying business class on Instagram, they're like, oh, my food wasn't good. And they're like really hoity-toity about it. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm so excited to fly business class. And you could probably serve me like porridge and it would have been great. So
I have yet to fly business class.
Yeah, we're going to figure that out. But we're also going to talk about why Air France is a really fantastic airline in general for families if you're wanting to fly from the United States to Europe. And we actually have additional flights booked on Air France for next year when we go with the kids to Europe. So let's get into it. So I think I'll do my business class flight and kind of how I booked it, because I didn't actually use points to book it. I used points for the economy ticket and then upgraded at the last minute. And so as a reminder, we flew back from Paris to Phoenix, my mom and I think very beginning of June. And Paris to Phoenix nonstop is actually a newer flight for Air France. They just released it this summer, right before the Olympics. And, I think we've talked about this before, but for being such a big city, Phoenix doesn't have a lot of nonstop international flights.
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating. So you have to go to LAX or Chicago or whatever. But anyways, now we have a nonstop flight to Paris, which is exciting. And so originally we had booked this flight for 20,000 points in economy one way from Paris to Phoenix nonstop. And I had been trying to upgrade and seeing if I would be able to upgrade through the Air France app for weeks and weeks before our trip. And there was no option. So basically you have to wait until like a day or two before. And I think maybe 3 days before, I called Air France and I said, are there any upgrades available? And they said I had to wait until the day before the flight. So I did that. The day before the flight, I went onto the app and there was the opportunity to upgrade for a fee, like a cash fee. And so the upgrade cost was $902 and it's an 11-hour flight. So I'd kind of told myself if it was 1,000 or less, I was going to do it. And secretly hoping it would be 500. And so when I saw 902, I was like, ugh. But I decided to go for it. It was definitely a splurge, but I was treating myself and I was also doing it for the content so I could share it with all of you. And so my mom was on the same flight as me, and what's interesting, and I don't understand the logic, but she didn't even have the option to upgrade for cash. She wouldn't have spent that amount of money anyways. She was like, nope, I don't want to do it. Because I said, hey, we can call and ask. And she was like, nope, I don't want to spend that money. But it wasn't even an option available to her, but she could upgrade to premium economy. And so she did end up doing that. I don't know what the difference is because I don't have any kind of Flying Blue status. And so I don't know what would have made my ticket different than hers other than I called. So I don't know if they can like make a, like check a box and say that I'm open to upgrades or not. I don't know. But when I booked
is there a chance that you got the last seat?
No, no, because when I booked it, I had the choice to choose my seat and I had like 5 different seats I could choose from. And so, I don't think that was it either. So I'm not sure. I don't understand. If someone knows like how this works, find me on Instagram at TravelParty5. Send me a message because I would love to understand better. But so she did end up upgrading to premium economy, and that was like $250 extra, I think, which is still pretty good, you know?
And what's premium economy?
So the difference is, so premium economy is like the class between regular economy and business class. And so your seat reclines a little bit more. You have a little bit more leg room. The seats are a little bit bigger. And I guess like in theory, I think the food is supposed to be better. I thought that she would get the same food that I had in business class, but like packaged differently, but she didn't. She had different meals than I had. So I think that's about it. But we are going to fly premium economy on Air France next year, so we can report back, and we're doing that with all the kids. I do think it's worth noting that this was part of the reason I chose to take this opportunity to fly business class is because there was just one of me. I only had to pay for one ticket. Like I would have never paid for 5. I would have never paid 902 times 5 for all of us to upgrade ever. And I don't even know if we would have done it for the 2 of us, you know, because that's almost $2,000. Like maybe, but I think probably what we would rather do is just book it on points to begin with and not have to pay that much money.
Or if it was just us two, you can do the first half and then I'll sit in there.
Well, you're not supposed to switch.
They won't know.
They're not going to know the difference between me and you because we look so similar. They're going to be like, oh, hello, Mrs. San Augustine. Wow, you've gotten so tan. Your facial hair is so much more prominent. Anyways, so that was the other reason why I was like, I'm going to take this opportunity because I don't know when it's going to come again. And it's just me. And it was a daytime flight. So a lot of times people will think that they want to fly business class from the United States to Europe because that's the overnight flight. And that's when you want the lie flat seat to sleep. But you also miss half of it, I think, when you're sleeping. So this was a daytime flight and I stayed awake all 11 hours. And after schlepping around Paris in the rain for 3 days, plus being in Italy for like 10 days prior, it felt so nice to relax and like stretch out my legs and not walk 20,000 steps a day. Like it felt great actually. And so let's get into like the actual experience. So when you fly business class, you get access to the business class lounge. Since we flew out of Paris, and this is Air France, which is based in Paris, there are tons of lounges. And I didn't spend a lot of time in the lounge because my mom couldn't come with me. And so I just went in, had some coffee, breakfast. It's huge. The lounge is huge. And
I'm assuming it's pretty fancy.
It's nice, yeah. Like it's definitely nicer than a Priority Pass lounge, but I would put it on par with like a Capital One lounge that we've been to. But it's huge, like so way bigger than any lounge we've ever been in. And in this lounge, here's where they would step above Capital One is I could have gotten a facial for free if I had time. We just didn't have time before the flight. But like, yeah, you can get like spa services, which I was like, kind of bummed that our flight was early and so I couldn't take advantage of it, but would for sure take advantage of that next time if I could. So did the lounge for a little bit, picked up some chocolates for the kids at the airport and some macaroons, and then met my mom at the gate. So the other cool thing about business class is like you get to board first. So I got to board in the first group, and my mom in premium economy was like right behind me. So like I think I was first group and maybe she was second. I'm sorry, let me back up a step. When we got to the airport, we both got to go through the priority boarding lane, which was incredibly easy and short. We didn't have to wait in like a long check-in line. And so that was great too. So, but that was for both business class and premium economy. We both got to do that. So that was awesome too. And then we got to board first. The only kind of thing I was bummed about is they talk about when you're in business class, you get on the plane and you go left. But I got on at the very front of the plane, and so I still went right. The only left was the cockpit. So
do you know if it was a 747? Did it have the second floor or whatever?
No,
the
it
upper
only had
deck,
one floor.
upper level?
No. So what plane is that?
The 747.
Oh, that has 2 floors?
Yes.
Oh, there was only one floor here on this one. So I think it was I'm pretty sure I looked up, is that a 787? Is that a thing?
It was probably a 737.
Oh, maybe. I don't remember.
Anywho.
But it was, yep. So went in, went right. I was actually in the first row in the middle. The only kind of bummer there is there was no spot to put my luggage. So in business class, each seat has its own luggage compartment, and I didn't have one. I did have a baby bassinet in front of me, and I asked the flight attendant, "Can I put my bag in here?" And she said, "No, that's for babies." And I was like, "Well, I don't have a baby, so can I use it?" And she was like, "No." So I had to use the 1A with the lady that was there, who kind of looked like I wasn't supposed to, but that's where the flight attendant told me to put my bag. So that's where I put it. And so they give you champagne when you board. They do that, I think, in all classes. So I don't think that's just business class, but I think the type of champagne you get is different. So I think business class is like a fancier one, and then not sure about premium economy. And then I know economy is like a cheaper one, because I looked that up.
So they gave everyone champagne?
Yeah, everyone gets champagne. Yep. And then they give you the menu, and they speak French first. And so I think like if I had tried to use a little bit of French, I think maybe I would have gotten a little more favor from them. The service was fine. I had no issues with it, but they were definitely more friendly to the people that spoke French. So, but I mean, it's fine. And they give you the menu, and there's like, a 4-course meal that they serve shortly after takeoff. So there was like a cheese course, and then the main course, and then a dessert and a salad and all that. And so that was all quite good. And then they kind of turn the lights off and you relax. I watched 10 episodes of this show. I've heard that the media on Air France isn't great, but I watched this show. It's in French, so I obviously had to watch it subtitled, but it's kind of similar to Bridgerton. So it's kind of like a French Bridgerton. It's called The Bonfire of Destiny. And it's basically focuses on the struggles of the 19th century French women after the 1897 fire at the Bazaar de la Charité in Paris, which was like a huge fire that killed hundreds of women. And it was great.
Why just women?
Because it was a charity event that was primarily women, and the men, not to give it away, but this happens in like one of the first episodes, the men like start beating the women to keep that, like to get out first, basically. So like the men are pushing and shoving the women aside so that they can get free, and like the women are stuck.
It's not very nice.
No. But it was a great show. Like if you don't mind watching subtitles, I would highly recommend it. It brought me a lot of joy. And I watched the entire series on the plane. In between meals, they also have like a snack buffet set up. And this is for both business class and premium economy. And it's kind of like in the middle. So you basically can just get up and go to grab a snack. And so I got up once, and I grabbed every single snack they had. And I'm pretty sure that these French flight attendants were definitely judging me, but I don't care. I was excited. I was curious. I wanted to try it all. I wanted to see. And so you also can order like coffee or cappuccino or whatever at any time. And so I did have a couple of cappuccinos, especially because we left Paris at 10 a.m., I think, and we landed in Phoenix at 12 p.m. So I still had to stay up for another 8-ish hours after we landed. So I made sure to have my like coffee at the right time, basically. And then you do get served a second meal a few hours before you land. That meal was not as elaborate as the first meal, but I mean, everything comes to you like with cloth napkins and actual silverware, like no plastic, anything. They clean off your tray in between. They come, I mean, I think I had a glass of champagne plus another glass of wine, and I could have had more. I just didn't want it. They come around. I mean, you can just literally have whatever you want. They have blankets. You get a little amenity kit. So you had earplugs and eye mask and all that stuff. In the bathroom in business class, they had like all this facial stuff that you could use. And so I did that, and that was fun because, you know, like your skin gets dried out when you're flying stuff.
I'm assuming it's bigger than...
It's actually not that much bigger. No, it's like the same. The bathroom is basically the same, but it's cleaner. And it had more stuff in it. So yeah, there was like a facial toner and a moisturizer and a couple other things that I got to try out. So plus you get an amenity kit that has like some face stuff in it. I actually have some of it's right up there. A couple of little sample size like moisturizers and stuff. And let's see. Yeah, I reclined my seat. So the seat lies completely flat. You get a little pillow. I reclined my seat watching my show. I mean, it was just like, I just spent the day in bed watching TV, basically, is kind of what it felt like, with a servant that brought me my meals. I loved it. I can't wait until we can do it again together. Like, I think that'll be really fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So let's switch gears and let's talk about, the other thing. Sorry, let me backtrack. When we checked in, they marked our luggage priority, both my mom and I. And so our bags were like the first bags to come out, and they had like these big priority stickers on them. So I guess that's also a perk. I don't know. Had never thought about that before, but anyways. Okay. So, there's a couple of reasons why Air France is fantastic value for families. Number one, kids get 25% off award bookings when you book a flight. And that's any class. So business class, economy, premium economy, 25% off. So, you know, if a flight is 40,000 points for an adult, you're only going to pay 30,000 points to book it for a kid. So when I have us booked, we fly on Air France to Paris, and it was 85,000 points total for all 5 of us in economy, because we are
cheap.
That's super cheap. We are full, obviously 2 adults full price, and then 3 kids 25% off. So 85,000 points. That's literally as cheap as it would get. And I think the taxes were $400, maybe not even. And so, yeah, incredible. Here's the kind of bummer. I booked those flights before the Phoenix to Paris nonstop route opened. So we fly out of Chicago to do that route. But then they opened the award bookings on the nonstop routes. So we could have flown directly from Phoenix to Paris. It's a longer flight. It's like 11 hours versus 8. But we could have done that. And here's what kills me is when I was in Europe, they had business class tickets from Phoenix to Paris nonstop on the exact date that we needed them for 50,000 points each. And so that would have been, for all 5 of us to fly business class, it would have been 212,500 points. And I was just like, maybe like 10,000 points shy of being able to make that happen. And so I was not able to book it. And like we had earned points through Chase, which is a transfer partner to Air France, but they hadn't hit our account yet. And so like I had to wait. And by the time they did hit the account, the flights were gone.
That sucks.
Yeah. So we were this close to flying business class to Paris, all 5 of us. So number one, Air France has discounted kids tickets on point bookings. But number two, they also often have a lot of seats available for booking on points in business class. So some airlines, they'll only open up like 1, 2, or 3 seats at a time, rarely ever 5. But Air France is different, and they will often have 5 that you can book. So that was a disappointment for me. I still check it all the time just to see if someone has canceled their tickets. But as of now, they have not. So wah wah. Next time. Another reason they're really good for families is because they have a lot of flights. So I mentioned that I found one Chicago to Paris, but I mean, JFK, LAX, Phoenix, DFW, they all have nonstop flights to Paris. And then once you're in Paris, you know, you can just use that as a stopping point to get to wherever else you're going if Paris is not your final destination. You know, taking the train in Europe is super easy. And so I think that's a fantastic way to get to Europe. I think they also have a fair amount of flights that go through Amsterdam too. And so, but generally they all connect through Paris. So super great and cheap points way to get your family, especially if you have a big family like we do, all the way over to Europe. And the service is good. I mean, it's all good. I don't have any complaints. And then probably the last reason, or at least maybe, I don't know if it's the last, but the 4th reason that Air France is so great for families is they will seat you and your child together without you having to choose seats. So you do have to sometimes pay for seat choice, which can be really nerve-wracking for families because obviously you want to make sure that you can sit with your kid so that there's at least one adult in your party with a kid. But Air France it literally says on their website, like they will seat you together if you're flying with a minor. So it's not like you don't have to pay for the seat choice is what I'm saying. They will just seat you together.
Is that how other airlines do it? I mean,
yes. There's like a recent law, I think, that now says that like they have to seat you, but it didn't always used to be that way. Like when I flew with our daughter, who at the time was 2, from Atlanta to Phoenix. This was on Delta. Delta. I didn't choose seats for whatever reason, because I think it's like $40 per person to choose a seat. And when I got to and I've always asked nicely at the check-in, and they've always been like, "Oh, yep, like I'll put you together." But this time, the check-in lady was like, "You'll have to ask when you get on the plane. I can't do anything about it." And I had to ask strangers on the plane if they would move their seat so that I could sit next to my 2-year-old kid. And like our seat was a window in a middle. So it's like, obviously whoever takes the seat, or I'm sorry, the seats we were assigned were 2 middle seats, not in the same row. And so I obviously needed a middle and either an aisle or a window. And so whoever switched with me was going to get the middle. And I still think about this. I asked this woman, "Hey, would you mind switching with me so I can sit next to my 2-year-old?" She's like, "Yeah, of course. What are you?" And I told her my seat. But I think she misheard me because she was sitting like in an aisle, which wasn't the seat I told her. It was like I said J and it was K or whatever. No, the seats don't go J, K. It's A, B, C, D, E, E. So I think I said E and she heard D, maybe. I don't know. But she definitely sat not in the middle, and then the flight attendant had to talk to her like, "You're not in the right seat." And then she just like gave me a dirty look, and I just had to like ignore her because what am I going to do? Not sit with my 2-year-old? You know, like, and I clearly said to her that, like, I didn't lie. I was like, my seat is blah. The fact that she either misheard or didn't realize that was a middle seat, I think is not my responsibility, but it shouldn't have been put on me to coordinate that anyways, you know? It's like when we just went to Grand Caymans and Southwest was like, we have a family that has to have 2 seats together. They were the last family to board the plane. And they were like, the flight attendants were like, we can't go anywhere until this gets solved. So, you guys figure it out. Like all 120 of us strangers who paid for these tickets, you guys figure it out. Like, no, that should never be on us to figure out.
No.
So anyways, benefit of Air France. Sorry about my tangent, but they will seat you and your kid together and you don't have to stress.
So I always thought, like, when you book a flight, you go to the Delta website and there's like a list of the open seats and you just choose 2 seats.
Yeah. So
is that not the case anymore?
It's not the case anymore. Not really. So it used to be that way. And now
So what, you just buy your ticket and you don't know where you're sitting until you get your boarding pass?
Basically, like you have a couple of choices when you buy your ticket, and it's a little different depending on the airline, but in general, you buy the ticket and then it asks you, like, after you see, okay, I'm going to pay $400 for this ticket. Then it's like, oh, do you want to pay an extra $35 to choose your seat? And you say no. And then it will either tell you your seat will be assigned at check-in or your seat will be, you can choose your seat 24 hours before.
It's corporate greed.
100%. Yes. Yeah. That's why Southwest is changing their policy to now have assigned money. Seats so they can, have a new revenue stream. But yeah, it's really annoying. And then some airlines, it's like, oh, you can choose your seat, but it's like the last 10 rows of the plane. Good luck. Godspeed. Okay. So the last reason that Air France is such a good, easy airline for families to fly, especially on points, is Air France's loyalty program is called Flying Blue, and Flying Blue is a transfer partner of all 4 major banks. So that would be your Chase points transfer there, your American Express points, your Capital One, and your Citi points. And they also often have transfer bonuses. So sometimes there might be, let's just say, for example, from Chase, a 30% transfer bonus. So you could transfer, let's say, 100,000 Chase points to Flying Blue, but you would get 130,000 Flying Blue points. Normally they just transfer at a 1-to-1 ratio, but if you can catch it when there's a transfer bonus, I mean, that's an incredible deal. So the reason that is super important is it is super easy to rack up Flying Blue points, right? And when you have a family, you obviously need a lot of points. And so, you can use your points from your American Express and from your Chase card and combine them together and have enough points to fly your entire family, business class, premium economy, whatever your points budget allows. So hope that this was helpful. As always, if you have questions, shoot us a DM on Instagram at TravelParty5. And if you enjoyed this podcast, we would really appreciate a rating on Spotify or a review on iTunes. Thank you so much for listening.
Have a good one.
Bye.